Hi, and welcome to ControlTalk Now, your smart buildings videocast and podcast for the week ending August 20th, 2023. This is episode 424, where we talk about all things HVAC and smart building controls, including sales and marketing. I got to tell you, man, I had an awesome week last week. Johnson Controls invited me up to cover their Customer Conference 2023, and I got to tell you, it was off the chain. Johnson's just doing a great job. They had their top customers come in, and it was great. We got to learn about some of the new technologies that they came out with. I'll be sharing those videos with you here over the next couple of weeks. Hats off to Rick Van Buren and Jane Wamsley. Man, they just did a fantastic job entertaining and educating their customers. It was a pleasure being there, guys. Thanks for including me. So it's going to be a great show this week. It's going to be a Johnson theme. I had a chance to interview Bill Schwebel. He kind of runs the whole shebang when it comes to building automation controls. You're going to want to hear what he had to say about where Johnson's going in the future. But before we get to that, a word from our sponsor this week, Johnson Controls. I've been a Johnson Controls distributor for over 40 years. And I can tell you, JCI makes great products, has great people, and great technical support. Not that they really need the technical support all that much. And what I mean by that is that in my experience with Johnson Controls, when they introduce a product into the marketplace, the product just works. We've all had the experience of companies bringing a product into the marketplace without all the bugs being worked out. Sometimes it feels like we're beta testers for these companies, but not so with JCI. In my over 40 years of selling their products, I can't remember ever having a problem with a new product launch. They just won't bring a product out until it's ready. They have a complete portfolio of products from refrigeration controls and chillers to light commercial solutions like Verisys to full-blown building automation control systems, including fire and security. The team at Johnson Controls is innovative, honest, and easy to work with. So next time you're at your local distributor, ask them what Blue can do for you. You'll be happy with what happens next. We are here at Johnson Controls headquarters with the head of building automation systems and controls, Bill Schwebel.
Yes, it's great to be here.
And thanks, Bill,
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, man.
You're in Milwaukee at our headquarters building. We built this building in 1895.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow. Proceeds from that first the thermostat you guys invented, right?
Yeah, so Warren S. Johnson invented the first thermostat here in Milwaukee in 1883 and started the company in 1885, built this building, and this is the smart building. And we've been here since 1895, so welcome.
Well, thank you for having us. You know, I've brought customers here before. I know a lot of people across the country have. So impressive, right? You know, because you got all your technology and your history in the building. But talk a little bit about the building and you know, the whole purpose of it.
So this building, and we're actually up in our showcase where we bring all of our customers in. And we've been running showcases, controls. We have global products, which is 5 different business units associated with HVAC, fire, security, and BAS and controls. And we jam-pack this thing full of customer visits. We have a lot of partner visits here. It's really our showcase. And we have 7 buildings on this campus. You wouldn't believe it because it just looks like one city square block, but it's actually 7 different buildings. And with that, we're able to show a lot of our systems. And we have pneumatics in part of it. We have all the interworking all the way back to Metasys 1 and before. And it's really incredible to have this facility.
Yeah, for our viewers out there, reach out to your local Johnson Controls distributor. Tell them you want to come to Milwaukee and see the center, man. You won't be sorry. We're sitting here looking over the beautiful lake here. It's just top hat.
Beautiful day. We brought everybody in August, so got a lot to talk about for sure.
Well, we do. Well, let's start with your journey. How did you wind up at JCI?
Yeah, so this for me is about digital transformation. I spent my entire career. I started in telecom in the 80s, and if you know telecom, it was all analog, and it's switch versus transport in telecom. So we brought in digital switches and fiber optics. And basically my whole career has been following that journey through cable TV, through internet, through connected cars, through supply chain, and now into smart buildings.
No, it's very, very, it's great it's hitting smart buildings the way it is. So with that sort of background, what sort of things are you seeing in the smart building controls industry that maybe we could be doing better? I mean, where are we missing out as an industry?
You know, it's still very early.
Yeah.
And we talk about the tech, we talk about digital, we talk about the tech, but the buildings, for example, I just moved here from New York City. The average age of a building in New York City is 80 years old, right? So if you think of the systems in those buildings, and they have to transition for a lot of reasons, energy consumption, better comfort, healthier buildings, etc. A lot of that transition still needs to happen. Our homes are a lot smarter than our buildings right now.
Yeah, well, you can do everything with your phone at your home, right?
Exactly. And people are a little frustrated about it. They say, why is it so hard? And, so we have a long way to go. But this is the point I like to get into these industries.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. Well, we're glad to have you in the industry. This is great. I'm wondering why it hadn't happened in buildings yet. What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, buildings, it's so fragmented, right? Every building is very different. So the last big one that I worked on was the connected car, right? So, you think of the automotive industry, and I came out of telecom and tech where there's a lot of standards. And in automotive, you think, hey, we all have to drive on the road. There's a lot of safety. There are almost no standards in automotive, but you basically have just a few manufacturers. It's basically a car. And it took a long time for that industry to adopt the technology, but it moved very quickly when it did. When you look at buildings, they're all so different. Every building and every engineer that worked on a building built it a different way, even in the same city. And if you think about, for example, I was talking about New York City, the design in New York City is different than Westchester, is different than Newark, and the code and the requirements are all very different. So that presents a big challenge to the industry to deal with all that fragmentation.
Well, I think that's a big part of it. Another thing I suspect plays into it is that, people that own commercial real estate, it's a business, right? So they probably look at upgrading a building if they don't have to as a cost, not a benefit.
Yes and no, right? I think it's understanding and it's really looking at what am I trying to accomplish? And if you think about who is probably driving what's going on in the building, it typically is somewhat out of control of the person that's using the building. So the user of the building may say, hey, I wish it was this, but the owner, who knows where the owner is?
Yeah. It's so funny, Bill. My clients, before COVID, they always talk about maybe how we could save energy, but it was what's the least expensive way we can upgrade the system. And after COVID, it's how do we get people to come back into the building, right? Because are you seeing your customers, are they asking sort of the same thing?
A lot of people are in the same place. I think, a lot of companies, talking about the commercial side, a lot of people never left, right? Yeah. The smaller regional businesses and certainly critical manufacturing environments, et cetera. They don't understand what's going on in some of the urban environments with some of the larger companies that are still dealing with, hey, how to get more engagement from our teams.
No, it's crazy. And I think we have to blame all this on a guy by the name of Tim Ferriss. Remember that guy wrote a book called The 4-Hour Work Week? And he was talking about his generation wanted to work remotely.
Right.
COVID comes along and everybody starts working remotely. And these businesses started, invested so they could work remotely. And it's not that they're not still leasing space, at least in my territory. It's just not leasing as much of it.
Right.
So we got to bring them back.
Yeah, we did see a lot of activity during the pandemic. Almost everybody moved, right? So there was some movement happening, and there was some build-outs, et cetera. So there was a lot of demand. And then when we got back to what I call the new normal, then it's, wow, maybe I don't need space the way I did. And then you still see people, hey, let's design cubes and open spaces. When a lot of people, when they come in, they want to get into a room.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have to redesign workspace. And how are we going to redesign it so that some of the things we did primarily to save costs, right? We're going to slam people, yes, for collaboration, but really we're going to slam a ton of people into this space so we don't need as many square feet. Right. Now it's, how do we have a great space, a great experience
where they want to come to work?
They want to come in and they want to do their thing. So it's going to be a very different design. I know, Bill Gates felt, this is in the 80s, every engineer wanted to have their own office.
Yeah.
So he provided everybody their own office, right? So what are we going to see in the commercial space? I think it's going to be different than what we have now.
Bill, I was at Realcomm and they had a guy there, one of the speakers there, blew me away. He's a Hollywood set designer. He builds these essentially like 3D sets, if you will. And buildings are paying for him to do that. So you walk in, it's like you're walking into a video game.
Exactly.
Like that, right?
Exactly. So, you think about all the spaces we see in the environment that are Instagram ready.
Yeah.
And that's what people want to have, that experience. So it's a big challenge for us, and it's an exciting challenge for the industry.
Well, but what I love about you guys is you guys can bring all the pieces together because, for our listeners out there, you guys own York, you own a chiller company, you own all these different controls companies from refrigeration on to the Johnson system. So you can bring all the pieces together because I'm thinking that one of the things is if we get another pandemic, how about if your building's safer because of the indoor air quality being better in a building than you are at home, right?
Exactly.
Things like that.
Yeah. So when we merged with Tyco, we decided to become a 100% building technology company. We're the largest and really only the company that is the building technology company. And we brought all those pieces together. So all we do is building tech.
Yeah.
And it is across all the mechanical systems from HVAC and air handling, the water cooling systems, et cetera, the control systems, of course, the building automation systems, the fire suppression, fire detection systems, the security systems, the video access control systems, and then how all those work and orchestrate the other systems in a building to really give you those outcomes that you're looking for in a building.
Well, you got a lot to digitally transform to work with, right?
Absolutely.
So anything you can share with us about what you guys got going on?
So this is a journey for sure, right? And digital transformation means more than just digital gadgets, right? So it's a lot of it is the process. So one of the things we're looking at as we look at the whole building life cycle, all the way from speccing to what do you want in the building, all the way through an upgrade or a retrofit of a building, but the installation processes, the services, the operational maintenance processes of the building, all of that is becoming digitized, is becoming digitally enabled, because what we're doing is providing the data from those systems. Not only is it becoming easier to install some of these systems because they're digitally enabled, it's easier to operate them as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it seems like we've been in this cycle for years where, the consulting engineer comes up, they do a specification, maybe it's a cut and paste. I think a lot of them really are adopting the new technology, can help owners sort of figure it out. But it seems like we got to get past the low bid mentality and really get, you mentioned it earlier, the specs. People need to understand what's available and how do we get that spec'd in?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is the way we buy. And in other industries, what they do when the technology benefits somebody later downstream, we incentivize the people that buy it.
Yeah.
And today, the contractors buy most of these systems. So the contractors aren't incentivized to overpay. They're motivated to pay the least amount possible. So how do we do both, right?
Yeah.
So how do we bring in these systems and these capabilities and then be able to add the value later downstream to other benefactors of those systems? So that's something the industry needs to figure out. And that's really difficult because you have to make investments to do that.
Well, you do. And I think, I'm encouraged with like people that show up in Realcomm Ibicon, the owners that show up there, because they really seem like they're getting educated and they're knowing what's available. I think you have to know what's possible before you can ask for it. I think you guys are doing a great job of educating the community about, what's possible.
Yeah, and we have, we operate globally. Every region buys a little differently. So we're really, we're tied to our mechanical spec, the Division 23 spec. That's where most of our systems are bought. But now at the Division 25, with the master systems integrators and that integrated automation capability, it gives those owners a place to live up at that level where all of this comes together. And then those specs, if I want to have a valid master systems integration, integrated automation, I need to have these capabilities at my Division 23. So they work hand in hand, and we're starting to see more and more of that.
No, I think so. And I think the other thing that Johnson does really well, not only do you offer a full portfolio of products, you really offer the customers different ways to buy your products. Can you speak about the different channels you guys go through?
Yeah, so channel is very important for us, and we're very well distributed as well. We, of course, have our branch network, which really takes care of those key buildings in those key markets. In North America, we have 120 branches, and very focused, really at the core is the building automation systems and controls activities in those branches, certainly integrating the HVAC equipment, and then dealing with that building life cycle. So that's the core channel, and we get to put a lot of product through that channel. All the way on the other end is our OEM channel, and it's not spoken about a lot, but we sell a lot of, almost 20% of what I sell goes through an OEM channel where our products are bundled with other systems. And of course, they integrate better with the building automation system, but they also have that life cycle benefit as well. So if it's bundled with an OEM piece of equipment, then all of the upgrades every 5, 10, 20 years come back to us for those upgrades. And of course, in the middle is the most important channel. It's really our channel partners across the contractors and distributors that deal independently. And those are the biggest channels. They're the biggest channels in every market and the most important channels in every market. And that's what we're doing here in Milwaukee this week is all about. It's really about celebrating primarily our North America channel partners, but we have channel partners from around the world really coming together for the first time in a number of years to really get that update and focus there.
Well, can I pay you a compliment? Because I've been a Johnson distributor. I was one of your first Metasys distributors in Atlanta. We've had your product for 30 years, and people ask, what's the deal with Johnson Controls? I said, look, you know what? They might not be the first people to come out with the technology, but I can tell you this. In my 30 years, they've never brought a product out that ever had to be recalled or ever had a problem with. So if Johnson comes out with something, it just works. I compliment you guys for that because it's not true with everybody.
Right. And quality is definitely key, and that backward compatibility as well.
Yeah.
So our systems work with the original systems we shipped. Yeah. And we still, I was just in a building with pneumatics in it today, and we have an electronic controller for pneumatics because they're going to be in your building somewhere if your building's that old. And it still works. The problem with pneumatics is that system's on the same rate 24/7. So what can you do to control that system? And a lot of what we're doing is ensuring that quality. Now, it lasts a long time, but that's a key part, that backward compatibility, that quality, and then standing behind our products is one of the reasons why people buy our products.
Well, and again, I want to compliment you on the fact about the backward compatibility because not everybody thinks that way. You guys always have.
Well, our channel partners want the same thing. Yeah. They don't want low-cost rip and replace.
Right.
They want to be able to migrate and modernize over time. A lot of our big jobs are retrofit jobs and say, hey, I want to spend this much over 2 years. I want a partner, a controls contracting partner, to work with me on that, and maybe on a design build basis, and do what makes sense, optimize what makes sense, so I don't have to rip and replace. And a lot of our competitors say, hey, I want in, I've got a low-cost solution. The only way you can afford to do that is if it's a super cheap solution. And we don't play that game. We want to protect that investment that's already in the building.
Well, you guys don't. And you guys also play at multiple levels. I mean, everything from the refrigeration, smart refrigeration controllers, which you guys do, to the light commercial. So the smaller buildings, you got the Verisys product offering, which is jamming. And then, of course, you got the full-blown Metasys system and everything else. So you really kind of have a product for everybody in the portfolio.
We do. And we have a lot of, those solutions up. And then a lot of focus on, we talked about digital, but a lot of focus on that software and how that software enables the solutioning of those various products. And these products were thought of as a portfolio.
Yeah.
And, now that portfolio is extending beyond the equipment. It's extending beyond the devices, extending into the workflows. So that is, having to work from that base. And that's one of the things being an end-to-end provider. So doing the field devices, doing the controls, doing the building automation systems, et cetera, we can make it all work together.
Yeah. No, it's great. All right, well, I got to switch gears a little bit here. And so AI, artificial intelligence. I mean, I know you guys are talking about it. You probably got all kinds of stuff already done with it. What can you tell us about AI? What's your take on AI? And how do you think it's going to affect building automation control?
Yeah, so for me, I'm a big, passionate believer in the workflow. And how do we enable humans to manage these buildings? The systems do their job, and there's a lot of automated systems. We started that in this industry, right? This was one of the first and robotics is a form of AI, actually. So we've inherently had those capabilities in our products for a long, long time. But really what we're going to see, and we're starting to see it already, is how it assists the worker. So our workers are getting older and retiring. The skill sets to manage these buildings. If I had to walk into, for example, this building that has every system imaginable and say, hey, Bill, this is now yours, I'm going to need some help.
Yeah.
And how do I know what to do next? What's the top priority? What's going to go out? What should if I had to, do something that's the most valuable, how would I know what that is? AI is what helps us do a lot of that.
I think you're so right. Because, we've had data analytics for a while. And, I remember you lived through this like I did. Everybody's pulling all this data out of the building. You got stacks and stacks of data, and now you got a data scientist say what to do with it. But I think you're right. I think AI, you'd be able to just input the
Absolutely.
data. And,
I mean, how many times have you walked up to a system and seen 5,000 alarms?
oh, yeah.
What do I do?
Yeah, alarm fatigue, right? Yeah.
Alarm fatigue, and I've been working in this building for 17 years. I know what to do, right?
Yeah.
That's no longer the case. You don't have that 17-year person that built the system knows exactly what to do. Now it's 5,000 alarms. I turn it off, right?
Yeah.
So I've got to have better software, better data, and better AI to be able to manage through that.
Cool. Everything going on, it seems like the construction market just is not slowing down. So tell me about that. What you guys have plans for new construction? How are you meeting that need?
Yeah. So, we're in the equipment device business, right? So we love to get in a lot of buildings. And what we're seeing in our channel, a lot of our channel partners, we see it in the branch, we see it with our very successful channel partners. They're really focused on that building life cycle and not necessarily as aggressively going after some of the new construction. So we're doing a lot of work to focus on really tailoring our offers so we can get more action out of the new construction market.
Okay. Well, it's interesting because at lunch today we're having a conversation and people were talking about new construction. And they were kind of going, yeah, we don't really call them the engineers anymore because it's a cost. It's a cost to, help them with that. And then, you bid the project and then if they're not going to hold the spec, so it seems like a lot of people have sort of stepped away from the consulting engineering market. Are you seeing them sort of as a key piece to sort of getting JCI back?
Absolutely. So what's happened, and I'll just tell another little story about that. But if you think about, right, what we've been through over the past several years, we've had inflationary pressures, we have labor problems, we have all of these things that really are about scarcity. So what do? You go to quality. So a lot of our channel partners and our branch, we've gone to that quality. We've super served very, big needs in our embedded base of customers, and they're growing. So we have good customers that are growing. However, going after that more competitive market is a lot more difficult and a lot less lucrative at first if you apply some of those same methodologies. So what we're saying is, hey, package things more tailored for that market, help that happen, and potentially even see some new channel constructs come out of it.
That makes a lot of sense. And you guys specifically could bundle like your chillers and your controls with your controls to do it. But if you had to give advice to, building owners, I get it, man. You're working in New York, you're running a real estate portfolio, you got a budget to work with, and all of a sudden these 3 bids come in and you go, well, this guy's low, let's go with that. What advice would you give for people that sort of have just that financial mindset? What can they do to make sure they're getting the best value?
Yeah. I mean, you need to partner. These buildings are so complex and you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
So really you need to partner up front and make sure you're doing the real comms, make sure you're getting educated, find that education wherever you can, leverage the partners. And that's a big part of our mission. And that's one of the things we're shifting focus on is how do we get more education out there? This podcast is a great tool for education. And that's where all of it starts. When I asked the question of my team, I said, how do we go, get growth out of the construction market? They said, you have to educate.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. And that's what we used to do with consulting engineers when things were simpler. Now things are extremely complicated. And I talked about Division 23, Division 25. Where do I go with this? And what advice do I give my GCs and my owners? And it's, they need to get educated. So we as an industry, especially Johnson Controls and others in our industry, need to focus on, getting back to some of those basics.
It doesn't hurt to ask. I mean, go to somebody like Johnson who's reputable. Just ask them to look over. They might not be low price. You still might wind up doing what you're going to do before, but, no harm, no foul.
You get that.
But, at least you get a perspective of somebody that knows how to do it right.
Exactly. And we're trying to use digital technologies again. And some of the things that we'd like to innovate would be how do we, tailor some of that. If you think about the world of buildings, there's not a lot of them. You think like there's a lot, but there's really not a lot. And just given the technology to be able to know enough to be able to give really interesting advice at a building level isn't that hard, especially, if you look at, what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. Bill, how do people get hold of you? You want to know more about Johnson Controls?
Well, of course, johnsoncontrols.com is our website, but really do local search for Johnson Controls. It's going to pop up. Our dealers are going to pop up. Our channel partners are going to pop up. Our branch is going to pop up. Find those people local to you. And worst case, go to johnsoncontrols.com. find me, and we'll get you set up.
Or you can ask me. I know who all these people are too. So we'll get you set up. So there's no excuse for not getting second and third opinions, right?
Exactly.
Bill, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You bet.
There you go. That's another week on Control Talk Now, your smart buildings videocast and podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, remember, be bold, stay in control, stay relevant. As Hunter Thompson used to say, buy the ticket, take the ride. And as my man Kenny Smyers used to say, indeed.